The richest in our society are making billions off of COVID-19. That is going to keep our economy in a crisis for decades. I know because I made millions as a trader in the city, betting the same thing would happen after the 2008 crash. So my name's Gary Stevenson. In 2011, I was Citibank's most profitable trader globally. And I made that money by betting that after 2008 crisis, there would be no powerful economic recovery because economists don't understand the importance of inequality. All right, so there's been a lot of talk in the news about how poorer people have been most affected by coronavirus. But what I think has not been understood is how much money richer people have made. Now, this can be easily understood if you understand the flows of money in society. So normally, richer people spend a lot of money. Now, that's important because it drives wages and it drives jobs for ordinary workers. They need that money because ordinary workers have to pay rent, bills, mortgages, and that money flows back up to the owners of properties and the owners of mortgages who are the rich. So in normal times, money flows in a circle. Rich people spend a lot, ordinary people have to pay their rent, their mortgages, their bills. Now, when COVID happened, suddenly rich people massively cut their spending, quite simply because a lot of things they like to spend on, holidays, hospitality, they couldn't spend anymore. Now that causes a big problem in this circle. Suddenly, money is not flowing around, it's just flowing in one way. And if that keeps happening, very quickly, ordinary people run out of money and they can't pay their bills and they can't pay their rent, they can't pay their mortgages. So obviously, government had to do something. They came in with furlough schemes and other support schemes to support people who had lost their jobs. The problem is, they didn't take money from the same place it was coming before. Rather than taxing the rich to help struggling workers, they simply printed the money at the Bank of England. What that means is money's still not flowing around in a circle. Now it's flowing in a line. The Bank of England prints new money, they lend it to the government, building up the government debt. They give it to ordinary workers give it to richer people when they pay their bills, and richer people are just keeping the money. It's going from the Bank of England and the government to the very rich. The amount of money that has been printed here is enormous. It's £450 billion, which is more than £6,000 for every man, woman and child in the country. There's been talk about more austerity, more taxes on ordinary people. Now, if that happens, that's going to increase inequality even further. But what I want to talk about is that massive increase of money that has been built up in the bank accounts of richer people. What is going to happen with that money? Now, listen, I've been poor and I've been rich. I know how ordinary people spend their money and I know how rich people spend their money. Now, richer people, if you give them a massive amount of money, they're going to use that to buy stocks, they're going to use that to buy property. And that is going to push up the price of those things. That means that right now, just as millions of ordinary people are losing their jobs, richer people are going to get a massive income from increase in the prices of the properties and the stocks that they own. It's important to understand how this is going to affect ordinary families. You know, back in 2008, we made the same mistake. We tried to fix an economic crisis by pouring money into the economy, and it all ended up with richer people. What happened after that? Stock prices trebled, quadrupled. House prices in London doubled. What's it going to mean for ordinary families if house prices double again? It's going to mean that for millions of families in this country, they will never, ever be able to own property. No matter how hard they work, no matter what job they get. It is going to end social mobility in this country. It is going to end the ability of ordinary families to access housing. I was working in Canary Wharf in 2008. I saw the economists and the traders predict we would get a massive, rapid recovery because of all the money getting poured in. But it didn't happen. That recovery was only for the owners of stocks, the owners of property. For ordinary people, there was no recovery because the inequality was never dealt with. If we do the same thing now, again, we will have 20, 30 years of economic weakness for ordinary people. This problem is not going to fix itself. Inequality will only get worse and worse. It will grow like a cancer in our economy. Listen, I don't want to live in a country where ordinary people can't have access to good quality housing, to financial security. I don't want to live in a country where if you're born poor, you will live your whole life poor and you will die poor and there's nothing you can do about it. We've got a tax system in this country which is very good at taxing ordinary workers. If you work, you're going to pay your income tax. But the richest people in this country often get their income through different forms. Trusts, inheritances, capital gains. These are all taxed in different methods and are very easy to legally avoid. Under that current tax system, it is inevitable that the very richest will get richer and richer, house prices will get less and less affordable, ordinary people will get squeezed, and the economy will never recover. I don't want to stand in front of you and make pessimistic predictions, but I've been betting on this for 10 years and I've been right for 10 years. If we don't fix inequality, we're not going to have an economic recovery. We need to reform the tax system so that it doesn't just tax the income of working people, but also taxes the wealth of the super rich. I grew up here in East London. I came from a poor family and I went to work down there in Canary Wharf. I know how difficult it is for kids from ordinary families to make something of themselves, to get property, to get financial security. And I know how important it is to people from families like that. And that's going to get more difficult now if we don't deal with the extra inequality we're getting from COVID-19. But it's also an opportunity. The inequality is becoming more obvious to everyone, the unfairness. This is a chance for us to come together and challenge the system and make sure that the very richest in society actually contribute instead of getting richer every time there's a crisis. We need to reform the tax system. We need to make things fairer. If we don't do that, the future is going to be bleak.